Okay, good morning. We are at the Pasadena Antiquarian Book Fair in California, February 2020. And we're here with Dr. Richard Meli of Heartwood Books and Art. And we're ready to go. Good morning.
Well, good morning to you. Thank you.
Did I say that right? What's the full name of the business?
No, Heartwood Books and Art. That's it.
So
It's
that
perfect.
gives us a little indication of some of the wonderful things we'll be talking about in the next half hour or so, it sounds like, with books and art being the focus. But let's start at the very beginning, if you would. Where did you grow up? Where were you born? What was family life like?
Wow, it's a great question. Something I haven't thought about in a lot of years, but I had a great childhood. I was born in Flushing Hospital in New Flushing, New York.
Okay.
I grew up in Oyster Bay, Long Island, and as a kid, I enjoyed reading. I was one of the kind of funny Italian kids who weren't supposed to be tough and not read, but I used to love reading. I used to love reading encyclopedias and about rockets. Back then, it was the trip to the moon, and everyone, rockets were so interesting to the public, and I was very interested in that. So I used to read books on rockets and submarines. And when I was a kid, I would finish my work early in school, and they'd send me to the library so I could just read. And I used to just read books. And I've been interested in books, I guess, since I can remember, really history. Since my parents got me an encyclopedia. It was a children's version, so it was a lot of pictures. And I don't know what it was, but it was just like all the sciences were very interesting to me.
It sparked something.
Yeah, I always loved reading.
That's wonderful.
Jacques Cousteau.
So
Loved him.
that's what I usually ask is, were there books around when you were growing up? And clearly there were.
Oh yes, my father. I was also very interested in foreign affairs, even in high school. My father used to be, he was in the military for a very long time,
Okay.
and he had the journal. It was a great journal called the Journal of Foreign Literature, Foreign Affairs. It was a Journal of Foreign Affairs, and it would go into in depth. I mean, we're talking about a very academic approach to what the world was, and what foreign affairs, what politicians, or really people involved in that would read. And it was very academic, and I talked to my father a lot about that. And it wasn't really politics as much as it was foreign affairs and what's going on in different countries, how the United States interacts with those countries. And so it was a lot. It was kind of a joy to my life.
That's interesting.
Working with doing that with my father.
Yeah.
And he was a chemist, and my mother was a nurse. So that just got it going. Since I was 5, the Italian thing was supposed to, you're going to be a doctor, my son, the doctor kind of thing.
And
And I love the sciences, so that really kind of culminated in what I liked as a career initially.
Okay. So you went to college for?
At Florida State,
Okay.
pre-med, and I went to med school in Miami.
Okay.
And then I was at Parkland. I was always interested in foreign affairs, and in Parkland, visited where Kennedy got shot, and that's in Dallas. And so it was a very, very interesting time to be around.
So that was your main career for how long? Was
A lot of
being
years.
a physician?
Well, I've always loved books, but I guess a lot of my people that I'm involved mostly in mystery and genre fiction, science fiction, detective, and the science fiction people. They all seem to have read what I read as a kid. People interested in the sciences would read things like, Robert Heinlein, or a lot of them read Edgar Rice Burroughs. I remember reading that as a kid. And I was an avid reader. I would read Dashiell Hammett. I'd read all the hard-boiled mysteries. I'd read all the, I guess they call them the scientific romances out of Edgar Rice Burroughs and Isaac Asimov. I used to read a lot. So I think being interested in the sciences got me interested in science fiction.
Okay, that's perfect. So you were a physician, one is a physician forever, for how long before you started what we know now to be Heartwood Books and Art? Tell me a little bit about the transition.
Well, it was a pretty big evolution. It was a long-term transition that I haven't completely transitioned out. Okay. I became, I guess when I was in my early 30s, I was the chief of a hospital. I used to do cardiac anesthesia for the heart bypasses.
Okay.
And I was doing fantastic. I joke that we were having so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
I was young, I was single, I was in my early 30s, and had some other surgeons that were young guys, and we really did great work.
Mm-hmm.
And we did very kind of intense work, but when you get good at something after the long term, you enjoy it and it becomes easy for you.
Mm-hmm.
And what the surgeons would do, and part of being in the OR and a major role of an anesthesiologist is not only to take fantastic care of the patient,
Mm-hmm.
but to overlook the whole OR, make sure the
Mm.
surgeon's comfortable, make sure it's running smoothly.
Okay.
And my feeling was always to be, make sure you communicate with the surgeons, talk to them. And a lot of times, to relax them, they'd want to talk about things other than the surgery. They'd be
Right.
focusing on that. But for idle conversation, they talk about everything from restaurants to sports, and I always, or in medicine, whatever they wanted to talk about. I always felt I was had to be they were Johnny Carson, I was Ed McMahon,
Right.
and that's why everybody loved me. I became the chief of anesthesia because it was
Okay.
competent, but also
Mm-hmm.
easy to work with. And but then I realized there's more. I love doing what I want to do, other things. I helped my father. He was a chemist and had a chemical manufacturing company, and I'm a kind of a 24/7 guy. I love to work.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would spend extra time working with my father in his company and helping him build it up. And I learned a lot about business. And in medicine, it became, I realized at 34 years old, I could go nowhere else. I would reach the epitome of what a doctor could be.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved taking care of patients. It was fun. But, I felt I'm kind of like to move along. I like to be going forward in life.
Mm-hmm.
And I always enjoy different things. And it got a little bit of routine. And it was, but for physicians, you can enjoy the nice physician life and they make fine money, they're fine.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to do other things. I want to do more. And so I helped him in his business. I learned a lot about business. And I learned a lot about, I love dealing with people. And I learned a lot about finance. And it was so interesting to me. I learned a ton. I brought that back to medicine where I helped expand our group from, we had a group of anesthesiologists, about 8 of them, and they moved up to we have about 150 providers now that we work with in multi-specialty fields. And it's just fun to be able to bring, I feel like I'm kind of protecting the doctors from managed care companies and regulations and this and that. And also, we make sure the doctors and the nurse anesthetists that we deal with perform, excellently. So I feel like I'm bringing both. And
Well, you're definitely sounds like you're adding value. And I'm going to guess that you also bring that value and that business head and that business sense to the book business.
I'm trying to do that. I don't want to make it all about, but I make a joke is I'm not in it for the money. I can prove it on my tax returns.
Right.
So it's not the business part. I don't want to make it sound, because in general, people say, oh, it's business.
Mm-hmm.
There is common sense. There is
Mm-hmm.
common sense that you should do and not do. But to me, this is the kind of antithesis if you want to make money. I'll be honest. It's hard to make money, and you shouldn't be in it for the money.
Yeah.
But it is also a key part of everything we do.
Mm-hmm.
And even kids today, they say they don't read books, but they're online reading.
Mm-hmm.
Reading, understanding things
Mm-hmm.
is so important to life.
Absolutely.
And it's what I've always loved to do. And the main reason, I was always, even when I was working since I was in my 20s, I'd be buying old books or pulp magazines, which were the precursors.
Would you consider yourself a collector?
Oh, I'm a major collector. I was
Okay.
always a collector, but as any collector gets, they get too much.
Right.
And then what do you do with your duplicates, the ones you don't want, either your mistakes, or you don't want this, and you wind up selling it.
Okay.
So I've been advertising to buy and sell for 40 years on the sides. And way back in I think probably the 80s or 90s were before the internet, you could advertise in these trade magazines, like I think it's Paper Collectors Monthly and things like that.
Yeah.
And there was really a lot of snail mail communication and phone communication.
Plenty of opportunities to buy.
Right. Oh, and I bought a lot.
Yeah.
I used to go to the pulp conventions and the book conventions. And I was always a buyer. Still am. And but everyone told me after I got a nice collection, oh, you're going to have a great retirement. Because you're going to buy and sell your book. That's what people do in their retirement,
Right.
And I'm not the kind of guy that retires, 65 to go watch and all. My father retired when he was 84.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And so I don't plan on retiring.
Yeah.
And book dealers never really
They
retire.
don't really retire.
Right.
They don't
And they love doing it. and it's just it's the camaraderie, it's the intellectual stimulation is just so massive
It is.
in this industry.
Well, for somebody who's curious and intelligent and a reader, it's the perfect
perfect.
place. The perfect place.
And so I said to myself, when my opportunity came, when I have 2 children, wonderful children, but I became an empty nester.
Okay.
And being a 24/7 guy, I just wanted more. And so I just did this. I like working a lot. And I don't see either of my jobs do I see as working.
Right, because you're enjoying it too much. And you bring the family into it?
I do. My kids, my wife comes. She loves it. She loves.
Yeah.
She's not a collector, and she's she joked when I was a kid that she'd want me to go to Pulp's Anonymous or like Alcoholics Anonymous because I'd have the house full.
Right.
But I do. I know limits though. I know limits. I have my books in my room. I'm not one of those guys who like the whole house is a hoarder.
Right.
My wife would not put up with that.
Right.
And she's so wonderful, she probably would, but I wouldn't even if she would put up with it, I wouldn't do it. So our house is separated. I have my books.
Okay.
I have in my room, in my office, and I have a library. And I snuck a few closed cabinets in my kids' rooms, but that was just a one-off. But they really aren't anywhere else. And I have a little bit of artwork too.
Well, we'll get to that. I love to hear about that art. How do you see the market changing as it relates to original art and to illustration art and to some of these areas that have not necessarily been always in the, quote, traditional book realm?
That's a fantastic question. Art, and I have to give credit, really the collector of modern fiction started, in my opinion, with the science fiction collectors in the 30s. They had the first science fiction convention, I think, in 1938. Ray Bradbury was there. I mean, most people know who he is. And a lot of the famous collectors were there. And they've been so avid. And there were really nobody in the book world ever collected art. Very few. Although he had great art in the early teens with Rackham and Jose Segres and a lot of the others, but it was
the golden age of illustration.
Right, was fantastic, and so you didn't have as many crossovers. Now it's for those people, they'd have books, they would collect the illustrated books and the art. Today, almost in almost every field, the science fiction people collect a ton of art. The historical fiction people collect art. Things from H. Rider Haggard, there's some beautiful art done. Science fiction art has always been kind of sold behind the scenes, but now it's becoming mainstream.
Okay.
Big art auction houses are doing it. Booksellers are doing it. Art.
Absolutely.
It's coming everywhere. And to me, it's kind of like for first edition collectors, especially modern firsts, because there are more available than say one. Like from my Frankenstein, it's that book is very hard to get. But say a Revolting or a famous Isaac Asimov book, Foundation, they're available.
Yeah.
Art is one of a kind. So it's almost like having that Foundation book signed by Isaac Asimov and inscribed to, Earl Korshak or some famous publisher or his publisher at Gnome Press. So it's art. Some people see it that way.
Yeah.
And secondly, you can hang it on the walls if it's appropriate.
Yes, that is true.
And that's the one thing my wife.
More universally, perhaps.
Absolutely.
To everyone.
And that's a fantastic point you made. Because it's a conversation piece. Now, some of the science fiction art can get way out and that kind of thing, but if it's classy and it's really mainstream, it's a wonderful conversation piece amongst people who have no idea, who are not.
Right.
And I put it in my house. My wife lets we entertain, and she's fine with it. She's fine with it. She's very open-minded and, been dealing with me for a lot of years, so she gets it. But the people around me understand it, even though my brother, when I was a kid, I'd be reading books and he'd call them cartoons.
Right.
And I said, these aren't cartoons. Come on. But that's what he would call them, He'd make fun of me. I'm not reading, it weren't comic books either. But but times have changed. Today, you could talk to somebody even 80 years old, they still understand that art doesn't have to be a Picasso, that illustration art in the 60s, of course, was seen, in the 50s, 60s, was seen as lowbrow, is not lowbrow anymore.
It's not lowbrow anymore.
And it's so wonderful.
Prices aren't lowbrow either.
Oh, that's true. That's true. They do well. And
so speaking of kind of new frontiers. Because you're not only looking at books with spines, what are some of who are some of the people? What are some of the firms that were your mentors that inspired you, that kind of guided you along the way as you looked at this new approach to business, to the art and the books? Anybody stand out for you?
Oh, well, I guess a lot of people. I would say someone like Earl Korshak, who was the publisher of Shasta Press. I have to say, and you as were a great mentor
Thank
when I
you.
first started.
That's
And
wonderful.
so I have to thank a lot of people that helped out. Lloyd Curry, Lloyd was
big sci-fi dealer,
and also a gentleman, and very knowledgeable.
Your collecting roots gave you perhaps insight into the world of trade that other people didn't have as an advantage going in first. So I feel like, had a really great perspective on the 360 view of the marketplace, and that's worked, I would think, to your advantage.
It helped because I had to, because I wanted to sell. I don't feel like we should spend family personal money and go into debt to buy books. So I would sell my duplicate books and we're all in the same boat.
On the internet, or by offering them to people you knew?
It started by offering snail mail, and then it got in. I really was, and I'm about the least tech savvy guy in the world, but I was on eBay I had people who worked for me in the medical business who I have worked part-time on the weekends, and they would help me on eBay. And I'd sell, and I've been selling on eBay since 1998 or whatever they started. That was the golden age, and people pay crazy prices for everything.
How has it changed?
It's a too commodity, but I'm not a commodity person on that. I've been there for 25 years, so I have tens of thousands of people who bought from me. And the key to that is to grade correctly, and to and make sure if you make a mistake, you take it back. It is ethical business, which everyone I've seen in this fair, and in this room, in this industry, on my side, is very ethical. But on the social sites, on the social media sites, and on the internet sites, no, it's not. I don't even know ethics, but they don't know what they're doing. They miss things. It's the Wild West.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm a little bit of the bastion there, but I do better with just friends and people who know me, and they buy, and they want to talk about the subject. And so I probably do better on. I've always been internet heavy until probably the last 5 years.
And what other methods now? You've got fairs opened up to you. Do you release catalogs to these, all of these people that have been buying you for so long? How else do you get the material out there and seen?
Well, I do internet. We call it a blog, but it's really new releases every week because we put so much on. We're heavy into, because I like, to be honest, I don't go for the big items all the time. I love bibliographies of magazines. And one of my real pleasures is going through an old Collier's Saturday Post and looking at authors I know. And, I do a lot of research in that. I put it on a database. And to me, that's very, very interesting. But we put a lot of items on. And we get a broad base of people interested in a broad base of things.
That's key.
And that helps us. You'll be shocked. There's something in this world on the internet for everybody.
Yes.
Including, I don't know, I remember talking to you one time about the ice cream cover.
Right.
I mean, on a magazine. I go, wow, I didn't realize that was a thing.
And everything is a thing.
Right.
Right.
And I'll never forget, and I forgot what year it was, but I got a call, and this guy knew I had a lot of magazines, and we spent a year. It was called the Year of the Tiger.
Okay.
So he wanted everything he could find with a tiger on the cover.
Oh,
and I have like 20,000. I have 20,000 magazines. Right. We were running around the office looking for magazines. It was fun for him, and it was fun for us. So it's so interesting that everybody has, even the most obscure authors, which I think are kind of only I like them.
Right.
I'm like, holy mackerel! There's other people in this world that like them.
Out there that wants this.
And that's the beauty of it and the fun of it.
That sounds really like a great perspective to have. It keeps it fresh. It keeps it really optimistic. A lot of people talk about the demise of fairs, the demise of the trade, what the internet did, the golden age is over. But it sounds like you're looking at it from the opposite, positive point of view. The internet has opened it and made all these things.
There are people, I sell all over the world, excuse me.
Gesundheit.
Excuse me. But yes, the internet is just because everybody is aware of it. So many more people are aware of so many more things.
Right.
and you're opening up. I sold I had a Lovecraft's Latin textbooks, and out of the blue, I offered it to a university because I thought they'd be interested in, especially Brown, and they weren't interested. They had other of his textbooks. I thought his Latin textbooks were key. And so out of the blue, a gentleman in Germany bought them. And I'm like, okay, well, what? And I had a long conversation with him. And he bought them he's been, Lovecraft collector all his life. And he bought them as a 60th birthday present to himself.
Wow.
And I'm like, wow.
How in the world, in any other time
Germany.
of our
Never.
life, would this man in Germany?
And these were expensive. I might have,
Yeah.
been a little bit aggressive on that, and I try not to be, but on those, I figure they're so rare, and my problem is I price things like what I would buy them for,
Yeah.
and I'm sometimes make mistakes. I'm dumb sometimes.
We all make mistakes.
And so, but I had those fairly high priced and, not ridiculous. I don't try to be ridiculous, but he bought them and he was happy, and, I paid for shipping. He was happy about that. I was, I saved $100 on him and he was the happiest guy in the world, and he's still trying to buy things from me.
And
I wish I had more material for him.
You have a new customer.
Right.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that looking forward. To a dealer who is entering today, what do you think should they? What do you think some of the challenges are today that a new dealer entering the trade would find? I mean, we see how the world has opened up and changed. Well, in what way do you think it's different than when you started all those years ago as a reader?
Well, technology, obviously, the big change has been technology and the internet. And you have to have a presence there, but you have to be more.
You guys have a presence?
Oh, yes, everywhere.
Website?
Website, eBay,
blog,
we've been
social media.
And I think my advantage was I've been doing it for 20 years, and we're very solid. We've sold the same customers, hundreds of items over the years, and so it's when you build that customer base. Sometimes I'm surprised that they'll pay a few more dollars. Like I feel like, I'm not the cheapest one sometimes, but my condition is better, and my grading is solid, and people keep buying from me. And I'm like wondering why,
Sometimes doing something right.
Yeah. And so the consistency is important. The grading, and something, the customers can be crazy. You can't get mad at them. I think sometimes our egos get in the way. And I've had, because we have had so many different customers, we've had ones that are just inappropriate or nasty or wrong, plain wrong. At the end of the day, you just swallow it.
Yeah.
It can't be, you just can't, the money part of it, you can't get in the middle of that. If the customer doesn't want the book, even if he's completely wrong, or if he says he lost it, you can't fight with it. You can't fight with the customer. And it's not, I've really learned, especially on the internet, you have to be careful because people make, erroneous claims. But you have to be very careful. And I had a guy that lost the book, and I literally I do a little bit of, I'm involved in the political circles, and I literally went to someone high up in the post office to find the book.
Okay.
And I guarantee I lost money. It's a $50, $100, no, actually it's about a $500 book. But we spent probably countless hours trying to find that. We found it for him.
That's incredible.
And from the post office, which I thought was mission impossible. So we lost money on the deal, but it was like he was so happy.
The day.
Well, he was the happiest guy in the world because it was really.
You have a customer for life.
But you have to do those things this day and age. It's different. It's different. And sometimes people get frustrated with the bad customers. I said, well, you just gotta rise above it, and that's hard.
There you go.
And males, the males in the field, and every field, bright males, in my opinion, and I'm one of them that makes the same mistake. We all have these massive egos, and we just have to take it down a notch.
That's perfect.
I try to, and my wife makes me do it, and she's not in a bad way either. But I catch myself. And so you have to be, you can't get so, win. You can't win all the time. And I found that's the best way to deal with customers. Everybody, get rid of customers. He's a bratty. So what?
That sounds like excellent advice, well earned,
right,
and well learned, and something for us all to think about as we move into the future.
Right, because those things add up. I feel like I call them deposits in a bank, and it's not a money thing. When you do something good for people, it adds up. It may be a minor thing, but you keep doing good things, and it becomes a big thing.
That sounds awesome. little things become big things.
That's how I feel. That's how I live my life.
Absolutely.
So.
Books become a library. Collectors become great firms. Well, thanks so
There you
much
go.
today.
Well, thank
for
you, Kara. It's
talking
been a
to us,
problem.
and we'll see you around.
Well, thank you.